My name is Rafael, you watch Rocker Garage, and today I'm going to show you 3 movies that the late legendary Motörhead frontman Lemmy Kilmister said were some of his favorites. But first, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, and leave a comment. Well, Lemmy was a fundamental part of hard rock and heavy metal history for sure, and I think he was really a very, very underrated songwriter. He read a lot of books, he watched a lot of movies, and I mean, he was much, much more than a bassist and a singer. He was an incredible songwriter. And in an interview with BBC in 2010, a few years before he sadly passed away, he mentioned 3 movies as some of his favorite ones. And the first one that he mentioned was called The Longest Day, released in 1962, which is a war movie. And he said this: great cast of actors on one hand, but also good story told from both sides, allies and Germans. That's what he told BBC about this movie, and it's not a surprise that a movie like The Longest Day is one of Lemmy's favorites, because he was a war collector, World War II collector. He collected a lot of stuff about the Second World War, and he was always interested in that conflict. And the movie was released in 1962, 15 years after the end of the World War II, and told the story of the D-Day, which was one of the most important days that marked the beginning of the defeat of the Nazi troops. On Tuesday, 6 June 1944, the D-Day, as the history describes, more than 156,000 American, British, and Canadian troops stormed 50 miles of Normandy's fiercely defended beaches in northern France. It was an operation that proved to be a critical turning point in World War II. And there are quite a few famous actors in this movie, although some of them were not that famous back then. And it has John Wayne, the famous Western star from Western movies especially, Henry Fonda, who a few years later would appear in other classic movies, Richard Burton, and Sean Connery, who would be the first James Bond. And even the musician Paul Anka was part of that movie too. And let's move on to the second movie. The second movie that he mentioned, it was much more new. It was Lord of the Rings, released in 2001, directed by Peter Jackson, and the start of a really successful franchise inspired on the J.R.R. Tolkien movies, books. I'm sorry, and this is what Lemmy said: because it is as good as the book, which is rare. That's what Lemmy said, and he was an avid reader. I mean, he read books quite fast, and I'm gonna tell you that right now. But let's talk about the movie first. The Lord of the Rings franchise, as I said, was directed by Peter Jackson, inspired by the famous books of Tolkien. Lemmy was interviewed even in 2005 for a documentary called Ringers, Lord of the Fans, that talked to famous people who were fans of Lord of the Rings, not only the movies but the books, as Lemmy was. And besides Lemmy, they also interviewed for that documentary the Rush bassist, keyboardist, and vocalist Geddy Lee, who is also a big fan of Lord of the Rings. And talking a little bit about the franchise, the first movie was titled Lord of the Rings: The Fellowship of the Ring, and came out in 2001, and had two direct sequels, which were The Two Towers, released in 2003, and The Return of the King in 2003 as well. Both parts were released in the same year. And from 2012 to 2014, 3 adaptations from the Hobbit books were released also, and on Prime Video, the Amazon streaming service, these more recently adapted some of the books for a series, and which was quite successful. And talking a little bit more about Lemmy being an avid reader, There's a really interesting thing that Ozzy Osbourne recalled in an interview with BBC Radio a few years ago, that he was really, really good to write lyrics, and he would come up with lyrics quite easy because he was really, really an avid reader, and Ozzy would give him a book, you know, as a present, a book about something that he thought that Lemmy would be interested on. Excuse me. And he, you know, just a few hours later, he would meet Lemmy again. They would get together to hang out or to write together. And Lemmy would say, "Oh, the good is great. The book is great, by the way." And he read the book just in a few hours. So that's why he was a really incredible, really incredible songwriter, in my opinion. And the third and final movie that Lemmy Kilmister mentioned it was a horror movie, which was The Wicker Man, starring Christopher Lee, who was also part of the Lord of the Rings franchise. And this movie was released in 1973. And Lemmy said, "Because it's creepy and Britt Eklund is dancing naked." Well, you could expect an answer like that from Lemmy. It was released in 1973, more than 5 decades ago, and I'm a big horror movie fan, and this is one of the biggest horror movie classics from the 70s for sure. And it is considered one of the most classic British horror movies of all time. It's a British movie, and it tells the story of a policeman that goes to an island to try to find a missing person and discovers a strange cult. It has the legendary Christopher Lee, who, besides being an incredible actor, also became a heavy metal singer during the last years of his life. He recorded a few metal albums, the 4 heavy metal albums to be more exact. And he passed away in the same year Lemmy left us, in 2015. But he passed away in June. Lemmy passed away in December. And Christopher Lee died at the age of 93, only a few months before Lemmy died at the age of 70. If you might know this movie, if you haven't seen this movie, you might have seen the Nicolas Cage version, which is quite bad, and it was released in 2006. It's the Hollywood version of it, and maybe you already saw that one, but it's not as good as the original one with Christopher Lee. And this is it. I hope you liked the video. If you want to read more, you can go to the description and visit the article we wrote about it. Don't forget to like the video, leave your comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I see you later.